Hi guys, got an interesting matchup for you today. Two very similar devices. On the left we have the YotaPhone 2, which has a Snapdragon 800 chipset with a Crate 400 CPU, Adreno 330 GPU and 2GB of RAM. On the right is our old friend the Nexus 5, funnily enough with a Snapdragon 800, a Crate 400 CPU, Adreno 330 GPU and 2GB of RAM. Obviously the YotaPhone 2 is quite a new device, only out in the last, few weeks really, and the Nexus 5 has been around a year now. I'll show you here the YotaPhone is running 4.4.3 compared to the Nexus 5's 5.0.1 Lollipop. The YotaPhone 2 is pretty much stock Android though, so they're quite similar in that respect, obviously just running the different versions. We'll kick things off with the boot test, and I'll tell you right now before we go much further that we already know from previous boot tests that Lollipop actually is quite slow in booting. So I'll speed this up a little bit. Then we're going into 3 times regular speed because we don't particularly want to watch phones boot up. It's not all that exciting. But as expected, KitKat and the YotaPhone 2 is there first, and we're into the app drawer, but not that far ahead. The Nexus 5 and Lollipop is there just behind. We can see at this point both devices very slick, very smooth. No problems there at all. I left them for a few minutes just to let them, if they had anything to deal with having booted up, and then we do the Angry Birds opening test. We can see here the Nexus 5 edging in front. The Nexus 5 is open, and the YotaPhone 2 a second or two behind. I know that's not anything too drastic in real world scenarios, but as I've explained in other videos, it's just about getting an idea of the power of the device. And we can see again the Nexus 5 in the lead, and it's open, and it is a good second or so, so it's not even actually that close, I wouldn't say. Which again, the YotaPhone 2 is the newer device, the Nexus 5 is a year old. More importantly perhaps, the one thing I've not mentioned, the YotaPhone 2 is £550, the Nexus 5 is £300. We move on to Geekbench 3, and as usual, I won't make you watch the whole of the benchmark. We're going to jump straight ahead. You can see the Nexus 5 is finished with a multi-core score of 2,649, which is respectable enough for a year-old device. And the YotaPhone 2 comes in 100 less, so it's not that much different. The single core, in fact, is slightly higher. But the Nexus 5 does win with 2,649. Not a drastic difference, though, as you would expect, where they've got almost identical hardware, almost identical results. Now we move outside. I don't even actually see. It's bleeding cold at this point. There's frosty grass you can see there. Things I do for you out there in my shorts, I was. So I reset the AGPS state, and then the first tap. I think I missed the icon basically. So we're a split second behind with the Nexus 5. But again, actually, this is probably a bit of a waste of our time. I mean, I run it anyway on the hope that the Nexus 5 performs, should we say, normally, but I think my Nexus 5 has GPS issues. There were a few at launch, and I've sped it up just so we're not sat here watching the little circle spin round for no reason. But there we go, the YotaPhone 2 locks on, the Nexus 5 just couldn't do it. As I say, I mean, I should really have sent it back when I realised there was a problem, and I didn't. I've probably waited too long now. So it does kind of make these GPS tests against the Nexus 5 a bit pointless, because we could sit here a lot longer and it won't get anywhere. I would say, I never have problems. I have used it for sat-nav or for checking into places, and it always knows where I am. I guess it uses Wi-Fi to get the rough location. I think it's, in fact, you saw when I opened it, when I started the camera, it had a lock. And that was, I turned it on, I put it down on the grass, and within sort of 10 seconds it had a lock. So it's only when you reset the AGPS state that I actually have any problems. Anyway, never mind. So we move on to the speaker. Now, the Nexus 5 was quite well known for not having a very good speaker. Obviously, a lot of people are not that bothered by it. I do, I like a good speaker, so it's quite important to me. The YotaPhone 2, I can tell you, it has a pretty good speaker. Interestingly, they're both on the bottom. Camera not quite focusing on it there, but they are both the same sort of location. So it'll be sort of even test in that respect. We're going to try, first of all, music.
This is #1 champion sound, yeah, Estelle, we about to get down. champion sound, yeah, Estelle, we about to get down. Who the hottest in the world right now? Just touched down in London town. Who the hottest in the world right now? Just touched down in London town.
The YotaPhone 2 to me sounds better there. It's just slightly louder and slightly sort of more rounded, so a little bit more bass. Doesn't sound quite as tinny, basically. Now we'll try spoken voice, or if VLC didn't crash, we would. So there we go. Let's try again. Yeah, so this will be more about the actual voice rather than music.
Essentially gave organizations like GCHQ and the NSA a free rein to go do mass surveillance. It also essentially gave organizations like GCHQ and the NSA a free rein to go do mass surveillance. It also overturned a lot of the rules and laws, and now we're in the situation where people are clamoring for the Googles and the Facebooks and the Twitters to the rules and laws, and now we're in the situation where people are clamoring for the Googles and the Facebooks and the Twitters.
I don't think the difference is as noticeable on the spoken voice, but the YotaPhone 2, again, I'm not sure how it sounds on the video, but the YotaPhone 2 does sound that little bit louder, just slightly, and it basically sounds just a little bit better, a more rounded sound, a slightly bit more bass. So YotaPhone 2 with the best speaker. We're going to move on to the browser test. As I always do, we're using Chrome, and I start off by clearing browser data. We're going to start with BBC. Yeah, if I can type. How can I not spell BBC? And the Nexus 5 got beat, so it looked like it had the edge. The background colour changed first, but then the YotaPhone 2 came through with the actual display image first. They're both pretty smooth with scrolling, I would suggest. Not really any differences there. We're going to move on to NFL.com. Nexus 5, slight edge. That's a tough one. Ooh. Although the Nexus 5 is actually still loading the page according to the progress bar at the top here. The YotaPhone 2 is finished. But to me, they both look to still loading. They both look to open almost exactly the same time. I don't know if you have a different opinion, but I think I would probably call that one a draw. The Nexus 5 still, according to the progress bar, hasn't finished. So I mean, you could say therefore the YotaPhone wins, but at the same, like I said, they pretty much opened and information was available at the same time. So let's move on to Engadget. That's a clear win for the Nexus 5. I think you have to say. Although, once again, it's not actually finished loading the page according to the progress bar at the top. Excuse me, again, nice and smooth. So, I don't know, the browser test, I guess you've got to say, probably a tie. The YotaPhone won the first one. The second one was pretty much a dead heat. Still hasn't actually finished on the progress bar. But the Nexus 5 did load that last one quicker. So, there's not a great deal between them, but, you know, as you can see, they're both very fluid, very slick. But I think the price difference means the Nexus 5 really is the winner. It probably, well, apart from the GPS and the speaker, it generally performed that a little bit better. And you're going to pay almost half the price. So I guess it depends how important that funky second screen is to you on the YotaPhone 2. But £550 with a phone, you have to wonder, is it really? It's a bit outdated already. Anyway, there you go. My name's Andy. I'll catch you all again soon.